totu kashina. Wichawaki. O wowa dake. Ke handechet wo wichawaki akte. Ihana do koto oyate. Tunipi o uyapi hena deha waniche daku ota tokcha. Duka wo shidate de iecheche henach dedu. Daku wasina wanicheshta. Wo wachimpi. Wo wachimpi. Wo washina.
In the beginning of time, there was nothing but spirit, great, limitless spirit. The great spirit became creator. Material was created, water, rock, air, fire, always with the spirit within. Life was created, birds, bugs, animals, plants, trees, always with the spirit within. Human beings were created by the Creator. Within us, within all things, the Creator placed spirit. When we come into this world, we are given body. With our bodies, we are able to make our spirit stronger than it was when we received the gift of life.
My great-grandfather, Starblanket, they call him in English. His name was Achakosagotakopit, which Achagos is a star, like up in the sky, and Kodakopit, like you're covering with it. And the word, I guess, translated in English means he has a star for a blanket. So I'm known as Noel Starblanket in the modern world, but in my ceremonies, they don't use that name, they use my spiritual name. My name is Papateweki, and that means spotted eagle. And the eagle is a very spiritual bird, flies close to the Creator, and you call upon that spirit of the bird to help you in your journey, your life journey.
Today an engine been born. Yeah, he'll be blessed, the engine will, and love the earth, the engine will.
My mother and father had 12 kids, one adopted, 13 altogether. I was the youngest. I was kind of like the little runt that got the last of whatever was there, you know. And so I had to fight for everything I got, where my parents supported my older brothers. As a result, I became quite rebellious and quite outspoken and quite outrageous too. I listened to my grandparents' teachings as a child. I picked medicines with them. I attended sundances with them and learned from them. And then I went away. I went to an Indian residential school, and I was very discouraged. Coming from a respectful environment with my grandparents to coming into a Christian church and having those values conflict with the values that I had been taught kind of put me into a bit of a turmoil about what my belief system was.
Strangely enough, once our spirit takes on a material body, so it can be strengthened, we have to work the rest of our lives so we may become spirit again. There are those who fail, those whose materialism binds them to the earth. They literally sell their souls for material things.
It's becoming more and more difficult now to deal with white men's governments. I think my record stands for itself in that there are only 4 people on welfare on my reservation right now. I will give you Indian people of Saskatchewan 2 years of my life. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you very much.
The winner is Chief Noel Starblanket.
Your father-in-law was a chief, and your father was a chief, and now you have a grandson that's a chief. What do you think about that?
Well, it's pretty good.
Is he as good as Starblanket?
I don't think so.
My great-grandfather and my dad, and now me, have always been in leadership capacities in one degree or another, and so that leadership capacity combined with that irascible part of my character kind of made for interesting stuff, which videographers would love to capture, and of course they did, much to my chagrin.
If I can rip off the white man for his plumbing and his electricity and his telephone, sure I will. I mean, isn't that what we all need, eh? We can't live today in teepees and washing ourselves in streams. We can't do that anymore. We've got to use the white man's trappings. But on the other hand, we can retain our own philosophy, our own traditions.
I was full of vim and vigor, to put it mildly, and Also very outspoken, very opinionated, because I had done a lot of my own politicization. And then as I developed in my political career from a chief at the tender age of 24 in my community to becoming the national chief of Canadian Indians at the age of 29. That was like a fantastic, quick evolution of politicization. I was dressing in a three-piece suit and doing all of those kinds of things, meeting with government officials and banging on tables and arguing with bureaucrats and all of that kind of thing. And all that while I was away from my ceremonies, I would have go occasionally, but not in a serious way. Of course, we always had people praying. We would ask in the proper protocol for them to pray for us, but we were so caught up with the negotiation and the discussions with government people that we didn't often have time to partake in our ceremonies. So for all those many years I was away, well, early 1980s, I guess, I came back. I had become so caught up with government and entrepreneurship and all of that stuff that I sought the almighty dollar as the way out for our people. When I was national chief, I had constantly had occasion to run into spiritual people in different communities across the country and into the U.S. During that time, I met an old man, Cree man, who had taken his people from his community and moved them into the mountains because he didn't like what was going on in his community. The drinking, the promiscuity, the drugging, and all the rest of that social dysfunction that was going on. He didn't like it. He said, we're getting away from what our old people have taught us, and we have to get back to into the commune with nature, with Mother Earth, with the spirit world, and all of that good stuff. And so he took people up there, and they lived in the mountains. They lived in the snow. They lived with tents and teepees and hunted and lived off the land and did all of those things. And his name was Chief Robert Smallboy, and he had a very, great influence on my life. He wanted to appeal to the power base of our people. Our political power base in that country at that time was called the National Indian Brotherhood of Canada, now the Assembly of First Nations. And Chief Robert Smallboy spoke to them, and he spoke to them entirely in Cree. If it wasn't for that man over there, and he pointed to me, I wouldn't be here. And he said I could go up and give him a big kiss. And that it was unheard of for an Indian man to give another Indian man a kiss, you know. This is not, this is not the way it's supposed to have been done. But in the Cree spirituality and our spirituality, that's quite all right. So anyway, everybody laughed, and it was a nice thing. And sure enough, later on during the meeting, he did come up, give me a hug and a kiss. And later on, he sent others of his helpers to come to do ceremony with me, with us, with other leaders of my time, to pray with the pipe and to bless us with the sweetgrass and to bless our offices and our vehicles and everything else, our homes. And so it began at that time for me to come back and start to redevelop or reconnect with my spirituality. When I was 7 years old, I grew up with that.
In the beginning of time, the Creator placed many First Nations all over this earth, our Mother Earth. For each people, the Creator placed all things necessary to sustain their lives. For each people, the Creator gave an instruction, and an original instruction about how they were to go about on this earth as human beings. To the oak tree, the Creator gave an instruction about how to be an oak, the shape of the leaves it was to make, how it was to bear its branches, everything the oak needed to be an oak. And it was the same for all things of the creation. Each was given original instruction. So it was within each nation of human beings. Each was given its instructions about how to be on this earth. They were given their languages, their looks, their ceremonies, their beliefs. Just as the oak tree never tries to convince the pine that it should change the ways, so it is that the original people never tell each other what they should do and believe. We welcome each other, each following our special ways.
Okay, Butch. You're on.
I did drink, which was not part of our culture. And I did some not very nice things when I was drinking. And I went back to the old people and they told me, if you're going to follow this way, you have to follow the way, the teachings, the ways of our old people. And part of that is there are no drugs, there's no alcohol, you follow your ceremonies, you participate in your ceremonies, you learn your language, you respect women, you do all of those things. And so I had to kind of relearn all of the things that I had put away or that I had forgotten. The old people asked me, if you want to do this in a serious and committed way, you have to make a promise. And you have to make a promise in 4, because our culture revolves around the number 4. In many cases, the 4 directions, the 4 seasons. So we do things in 4s. And they said you have to do 4 years Sundance, and you have to fast for 4 days during that each year. And when I had finished, it was as if my total spiritual, physical body was cleansed of all of those things that I had been doing previously, and the wild and crazy things that I had said and done, and that I had sought forgiveness, and that the Creator had forgiven me, and the spirit world was now going to help me on my journey. Different tribes or peoples call it Sweetgrass Road, the Sweetgrass Trail, the Red Road, or different ways, but all it means is you're walking down a cultural, spiritual path. Traveled on a horse from Vernon, British Columbia, and to inland Canada, center of inland Canada, about 2,000 miles. It took me 49 days. I had an old man. He was 69 years old. He was my guide, and he was in pain. But he says, "I'm doing this for my people. I'm suffering for our people. That I will take some of their pain and suffering away, and let it dissipate into the spirit world." And he rode every day, every single day. And I rode with him, and I prayed with him, and I sang with him. And though we sang different songs, he would ask me to ride with me, and he would say, sing your songs. And then I'd sing my songs, and then then we'd ride for a little bit longer, and then he'd pray, and then I'd pray, and then he'd say, now I'll sing my songs, and we'd sing. And those horses' ears would communicate with us, and their ears would go every which way, and they'd settle down, and they knew what we were doing. Because our belief is that when you're praying on the horse's forelegs are taking your prayers to Mother Earth. Then our Mother Earth then takes the prayers up to the Creator. And we prayed many times by the rivers, because our belief also is that an old lady spirit sits in that river. And when you pray, offer tobacco to that old lady spirit, that old lady spirit would take your prayers. And so we did that many, many times through the mountains and through the valleys and wherever we traveled. We traveled with many different cultures, many different tribal groups, from the Shuswap to the Lakota, the Cree, the Ojibwe, the Pickard, you name it. Wherever we traveled across the country, we met with these different nations, and we ceremonialized with them. And without question, every single one of them welcomed us for what we were doing. And indeed, many of them supported us. We see, we were on a wing and a prayer is a phrase I like to use. We didn't have great sums of money to help us on that. We were going, as we were going, people were helping us, giving us money, stopping and giving us money. Everybody, along the highway, white people, black people, you name it, they were giving us money. We thought we would have a difficult time in certain parts of the country, and in fact, the opposite was true. When we thought we were going through a redneck part of the country, this is going to be really difficult. These were the most helpful people, because they understood, for some strange reason, they connected with us at another level. It wasn't human to human, I guess it was somewhere else. And as I travel about the country and I run into different people and peoples, I begin to sense an understanding. Through this life, we can even touch the people that we thought would be most anti-spirituality or anti-Indian or whatever. Each day I learn something new about our spirit world.
Yeah, you guys can come in.
And my own spirit journey, and my healing journey, and I'll continue to learn. Never stop learning and never stop healing. And that's my lifestyle, and I try to teach that to people, and they recognize that at the healing center, and they ask me to help. My job is to work with the elders, bring the elders in to do ceremonies with them and for them, pipe ceremonies, sweat lodges, other ceremonies, and I take them out to powwows and other events as they happen. But essentially to allow them to find that outlet to be able to heal themselves within themselves through those ceremonies. And ceremonies are quite powerful because they bring in healing spirits which can't happen in a clinical social work setting. And in that way they're able to find themselves, they're able to learn how to pray in our custom, our traditions, and they're able to begin their healing journey through through those ceremonies and contact with elders. But we try to couple it with the clinical social work methodologies, because we have to live outside in the big world, in the real world, and there are those many distractions and temptations and what have you in the real world, so we try to understand that as well. Hopefully some of it will take. We can only do so much from the clinical point of view. We can only do so much from the spiritual point of view. After we finish our teachings, then we let them into the big world and we say, the rest is up to you. We will teach, we will pray, but in the end, it's up to the individual.
Creator, this is Thunderbird that sings. These thoughts I think, raiding me away within. Where do I begin my expression of a silent oppression? Slowly the walls are crumbling, everyone's stumbling to catch up. Not for the top, just to catch up. Because we're behind the times. Inside the mind of a lot of youth is... Actually, truth is, most have already succumbed to corruption. How do I reach them before it's too late? Before they make the wrong choice that seals their fate? How about the ones in jail or the ones already on that trail? With the message, I'm not gonna fail. Things need to change, it's no riddle, or at least be rearranged just a little. All sorts of diseases among our peoples, some spreading like wildfire. It's dire. How do I increase the overall quality of life? That's another problem, suicide. Every day I pray for myself and others, family members, fallen sisters, fallen brothers, grandfathers, grandmothers. The problems are many, these are just a few. The ripple of residential schools. Most High, that is my truth, and it hurts to see what the people go through. Great Spirit, I know you hear this. Light our way is the coming of a new day. Dinega.
After 1996, my drinking got worse, my drug abuse got worse, and I just got sick of it. I had enough. And it's like it was meant for me to be here. From what I was taught at a young age, my grandfather taught me, I guess he set a foundation of me being spiritual in a way, but then I've forgotten that throughout the years. I believe that he planted a seed in me, and he was starting something with me that he knew he couldn't finish, because he told me too that he wasn't going to walk this world and he's going to die soon. He knew, so he told me, one day you're going to be walking around, I'm not going to be here anymore, you're going to feel homeless. He was right. I just traveled, roamed around. After 1996, my death wish became, Mom, do me a favor, kill me. I can't commit suicide because I won't go nowhere. I'll stay lost. And that's what my grandfather instilled in me at a very young age. That's why I couldn't do it. I couldn't commit suicide. I tried twice, but I couldn't do it. She was killed by a drunk driver. I don't know how long I grieved. I can't remember exactly, but I remember waking up every morning, missing her. And I couldn't even sleep on a double bed or even a bed. I had to sleep on a couch for comfort because I had to have something against my back to keep me warm. And that's the only way I can sleep at nights. And then in the mornings I'd feel for her, like feel around, and Then I'd wake up, oh yeah, like she's gone. And then as the day got on, I finally accepted that she is gone. Then the regrets came. And should have been me instead of her. Those thoughts, everything just crossed my mind. Like, she had a lot more to lose than I did, I felt, because she had 4 children, 1 grandson. Like, she had a lot more to live for. Me, on the other hand, I have no children. I still don't. I used to tell her, don't be silly, we're gonna grow old together. And that's where I took her for granted. I used to think because we're happy together and we love each other, I thought that this was gonna last. She died right in front of me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to leave her because it was at night to go for help. And I don't know how long she laid there until the ambulance showed up, maybe 2-3 hours. It was too late by the time they got there.
One of our universal understandings is that every part of the universe is one half of a duality, that for each thing there is its opposite, and that we cannot have one without the other. We cannot have day without night. We cannot have joy without sorrow. We cannot have life without death. Sometimes we think we catch a glimpse of that place in our dreams, but we are never quite sure. Often, however, we think of death as being the beginning of a journey to some other place.
Several years ago, in my travels, I had come across this lady who was asked to coordinate the sponsorship of the Association for Death Education and Counseling. She thought it would be a good idea as a Canadian sponsor to give them an understanding of grief and loss from a First Nations perspective, an Indian perspective. And these people were from all over the world, all walks of life. So I thought about it, and I thought, how do I talk to these people? How do I approach them from an intellectual point of view that describes our experience, but at the same time touches them? I had about an hour to speak. I had just lost both my parents just a couple of years before that. And I was going on happily in life thinking that before they died that these people would live forever. And I would never know what it felt like to lose them. And I continued to seek their guidance and their solace or whatever else was happening in my life. They're always there for me. And I just never thought ever of seeing them, having to be without them. And then my father got sick. I knew he was afflicted with several diseases, and then he died. So when he died, I was very shocked. I went into shock. I did all that stuff, denial and the whole bit. And my brother, who's gifted with the ability to sing and compose songs, put a song together in our language, Cree, for him in his honor. And my nephews, who are champion singers, my brother gave that song to them and said, sing this song from now on for the rest of your lives, for honoring ceremonies and for honoring people and for honoring the Creator in the spirit world. And when they sang that song, everything left. I couldn't function. I had a lot of difficulty. And but today when I hear that song, I remember him, and he's very, well, I always remember my father. Whenever I hear that song, we sing that song in our ceremonies sometimes, and it always brings back the teachings that I got from him and love I felt for him. I tell that story because after I made my speech at ADEC there, I put my speech down and I started recollecting. Keep in mind that I grew up as a very small child with my grandparents. Of course, in those days, it's all right to cry when you're a child. I saw my grandparents cry. They're old. That's allowable. I went to a Christian school. You can't cry because to cry is weak, and shame on you if you cry and all that. And so I was taught not to cry. And later in my spiritual life, I was taught that crying is not a sign of weakness. That crying is merely opening yourself, exposing your innermost self, your emotion, your deepest feelings, and allowing people to see that. And that's not weakness, that's strength. So, and they teach us that in our ceremonies. But I was still of the mentality that you shouldn't cry, or you shouldn't cry in public. So in front of those many hundreds of people, I talked about my father and my mother, and began to talk to them from my feelings, from my heart, and just as has happened now, it welled up inside me, and I broke down in front of that meeting. So when I finished, I didn't realize the impact that had on those people, because I didn't know who they were. I thought they were all just, intellectual people. Did this as a science, but they had feelings too. They all came forward to the stage when I came down. They engulfed me. And people were hugging me and kissing me. I'd never been kissed by so many people at one time in my life. So anyway, but they all shook my hand and they told me what a wonderful thing. And that was probably the most profound experience that I've had in all of this that I've done, I've continued to do since. And that to me tells me the well of humanity. And that's what I guess has been the blessing. And when you're able to exploit that and share that and teach that and impart that with people, no matter what race or what religion or what nationality they come from, man, that's a tremendous, powerful thing. The old one said there will be 7 generations. We will live in a dark period of our history for 6 generations. And in the 7th generation, the light will come again, and the young ones will see that, and they will pick that up again, and they will redevelop their spirituality, their ceremonies, their language, and this will all come to pass. And as we had our cultural camp at my community there this past week, I saw that they were the 7th generation that came from my great-great-grandfather. From him to my great-grandfather, to my grandfather, to my dad, to me, to my children, and now my grandchildren. I saw my grandchildren out there. They were the 7th generation. And when you think about those old people, what they said, This is the generation that's going to rediscover and that's going to redevelop, going to rekindle our ancient traditions, our ceremonies, our prayers, our livelihoods, and all the good things that our old people did way back then. They're going to pick that up again. And they're going to put it on, and they're going to wear it, and they're going to wear it proudly. And they're going to take our people out of this down time, this dark time of our history. And we're seeing that starting to happen. Our young people are starting to reach for those things. I saw that this week, young people helping old people who could hardly walk, some of them. They had canes, and young people holding them by the arms so they wouldn't fall. I saw young people bringing blankets and bringing chairs for those old people so they could warm up by the fire. I saw all those wonderful things. I saw them referring to them by their kinship name, like whether he's a grandfather, you call him grandfather in our language, Musum. You call them that. Uncle, no chawis, you don't say. Uncle Noel, you say. No chawis, you call them by their kinship name. And in Cree they call that wakutoin, that's like our kinship system, our relatives. And no waku maganak, like that's Cree for my relatives. No waku maganak, that's all my relatives. And you see that happening. You see our young people picking that up. So their spirits were humbled, their spirits were quiet, their spirits were opening, and they were taking that in. It made me happy. So that's the 7th generation that I was watching. It's happening all over.
There is a road in the hearts of all of us, hidden and seldom traveled, which leads to an unknown secret place. We are taught to believe that the Great Spirit sees and hears everything, and that He never forgets, that hereafter He will give every man his spirit home, according to his deserts. O Great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I am small and weak. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset.